Hey everyone, it's Zach with Palantir Research. AIPCon just happened, and we got plenty of tidbits from their clients. Today I want to cover their $200 billion size client, Cisco. There were some good things, but also not so amazing things for the presentation in my opinion. So presentation first, then I'll go over my thoughts on how it went. And actually, before AIPCon was announced, I didn't know Cisco was a client, and after the event, we all got a better idea on how they use Palantir, which is great. It was nice that Mike Yonkers said he was actually at the previous FoundryCon in the audience thinking about how to adopt Apollo, and this presentation he gives goes over how he actually did it and deployed it. Quick side note there from his comments, this is amazing. It shows these events actually work. It can get clients or potential clients to think about a product and become successful. This brings in new customers or expands customers. It even just strengthens current customer relationships with Palantir because they can use the full capabilities of their products and extract the most value they can when using them. Well, moving on. So first, the speaker is Mike Yonkers. Check out my previous video for some more details on his background. But basically, he was a system engineer at Cisco, focused on the federal space, and worked his way up to a higher director role for Cisco's information technology. His presentation centered around dealing with government customers not only in the US, but also around the world. And their main problem with that was dealing with an existential threat, you could say, where he's trying to provide services to governments for the same products, but Cisco is required to deliver it in the exact environments their customers need because regulation is obviously different between countries and even between departments within a country's government. Basically, deploying these services to different countries around the world is the main issue where you don't want to build a different solution every time when there are different cloud requirements. So he brings up a good example that just within the federal government, they have already 3 different requirements, all with their own certifications and rules between civilian, DoD, which is Department of Defense, and the intelligence community's cloud solutions. So all the US federal government, but they can't be ran the same way. And he puts a blurb for more detailed info going into Palantir's blog on solving it for DoD IL6. So check those out if you can. They are really informative here, especially if you go into the details. But he's saying that Palantir solved these 2 things. 1, separating product development from product deployment, and 2, deploy and manage the same product in multiple connected and disconnected environments. So he goes on to say Cisco doesn't have the time and money to develop this kind of solution in-house. Global teams aren't able to work effectively because logically, logistically, and physically meeting requirements is going to be different between each of these customers. They don't want to build together and end up separating it in the end when they're deploying it. So this is where Apollo jumps in from Palantir. They're providing WebEx on a global government basis, Cisco is, from their central hub. But then you'll see a horizontal hard line here that shows where Apollo is coming in to separate this out, to where you're meeting customer requirements, but the clock is there also to show you're only allowed to push stuff remotely at different timelines. And Apollo's the one who does this capability for them. Now, why doesn't Cisco actually do this themselves? Well, you already mentioned that they don't have the time and money to develop this kind of solution. So why not use a product that already solves this problem from Palantir who can do it effectively, which in turn allows Cisco's teams to focus on their actual goals, which is 1, Cisco product development teams focus on innovation, feature velocity, and improving code. And 2, Cisco SRE teams focus on deployment and sustainability of our SaaS offerings. So essentially, in my opinion, it's to ensure they focus on what brings in the money and what they do best and what customers actually see for Cisco. And of course, better deployment will improve these for the customer experience in time. But if Cisco wastes the time themselves to develop what Palantir has already done, then it just takes time away from the more front-facing goals that they just mentioned. Cisco wants to make Cisco products awesome, not necessarily solve problems that someone else already has done, especially since Cisco can afford it, based on their size, to make these kind of investments. Now, a startup might be a different story with limited resources. And then Mike Yonkers does close out his presentation that they picked Palantir and put a quote from Dr. Alex Karp's quote from the last FoundryCon in February saying, "Iterate with a partner you trust." So overall, I still think this was a great presentation. So there are going to be pros and cons to here, though, still in my opinion. So let's just start with the pros. First, it's Cisco. No matter what you say, this is a large and reputable company. So their glowing review does mean something that other businesses, especially their competitors, will take note of. If they're also large like Cisco, who has the resources to bring on these deployment solutions, Apollo, for their products from Palantir, they can easily see the value he stated where they can focus on making their own products better and what their teams are good at. And of course, you can't write off the trust part here. And I think one of the best pros is that we never hear anything about Apollo or customers that use it. It's definitely taken the backseat to the announcement of the AIP or artificial intelligence platform, but also even before that, Foundry was still the main focus, especially in their media. But I'm glad he brought up a pretty straightforward example where you want to deploy a common product, but still need it to act accordingly to certain requirements in different areas with different timings around the globe. I mean, it's good considering this is the main use case, whereas Foundry does appear to have more robust capabilities, and so there's different ways that these clients can deploy it. But in the end, these products work together, which hopefully means Cisco will take on more Palantir products for use cases, but we don't know that for sure. And that segues perfectly to some of my cons of the presentation. First con is this focused on Apollo, and this is the first presentation of AIPCon. There was literally no mention of artificial intelligence, or at least plans to overlay this on top of their solution. You can definitely see confusion from investors or those in the audience thinking they'd get a home run off the bat talking about a sexy artificial intelligence application, but no. My next con, though, too, is that it sounds like a limited use of Palantir at Cisco. Now, considering their size, they'd obviously like to try out Palantir before rolling out more solutions to a wider audience at Cisco, so we really don't know how big Palantir's business is with Cisco, or if they're even out of the trial period. So this still might be a small customer in regards to that. But still good to get your foot in the door, no matter how you think about it, which is the biggest con also, though. We didn't really get a hard before and after statistic, like how much time or FTEs would it have costed theoretically for Cisco to build this instead of bringing on Palantir, or how slow your deployment process would have been to handle these individually versus using Apollo. But I get it. As a public company, once you put out numbers, it kind of beholds you to those, especially if you're not entirely sure how to measure the theoretical costs, because if it is super high, it can actually make you look incompetent. So there are some political reasons too that I can see them not actually giving out hard numbers and statistics here. But I still think overall a good presentation because we have a very reputable customer giving Palantir the thumbs up. But let me know your thoughts below and I'll see you in the next video.